Hello all. This video will explain how I want you to document your Scrum in your process report. So I've seen your first sprints, the initial stuff, and for some of you I've also seen the completed one, and it has led me to make this video so we're all on the same page about what we expect regarding Scrum. So Scrum is part of the curriculum, and you're supposed to show that you know Scrum and you can follow it strictly. So you're not allowed to just come up with your own Scrum-like approaches. That's not for this semester. So if you follow the documentation, maybe that will also make it easier to actually follow Scrum throughout the project. So in your process report, at some point there's a project execution section. I think maybe it's section 3 or something like that. And in there you will document your Scrum. You will first show your product backlog, so that gives us an overview, sort of introduction. You will show the sort of final status so we can see how much was completed. You will then document each of your sprints in the following manner. So you can pick 2 sprints that are interesting, for example one that went well and one that did not go well. And what that actually means could be up to you. Maybe you did not execute Scrum very well in a specific sprint, so that's interesting to talk about and reflect upon. Or maybe you had a very difficult sprint because everything just went wrong and you had to adjust or something like that. I don't know. And then a sprint where everything went exactly according to Scrum and you follow it and you were experts about it. And so you will document sprint 1, and in each sprint we have a couple of meetings, 4 different types. You will document your sprint planning meeting first. So we want a time and date, maybe a duration even. We want to know who's present. So you'll put the names. You will have the meeting minutes. So this is not how long time did the meeting last, but this is the recap of the report or the account of the meeting. So what was discussed. I hope you do work breakdown structures. You can put them in the appendix and then reference those and say, the work breakdown structures for this sprint, you can find them in Appendix F. You could show one of them. I hope you're doing a work breakdown structure for each of the tasks in your sprint backlog, initial sprint backlog. So don't put them all in the process report. That will just clutter everything, but show a nice example. And then you show the sprint backlog. What do you actually, this is the result of the sprint planning meeting, what do you actually plan on working on? So the sprint backlog contains both user stories and their subtasks, and everything else you plan on doing, setting up GitHub, fixing bugs, writing reports, refactoring code, whatever, right? Everything you plan on doing for a sprint should be in a sprint backlog task. And if you're working on something that does not belong to a sprint backlog task, you should probably not be doing that. And if you really must be doing that, then it should go on the sprint backlog. Then each day you're going to do the daily Scrum meetings, the stand-up meetings. Again, time, date, duration is sort of fixed to 15 minutes. That's the recommendation, but maybe yours is slightly different. Who's present? And a short recap about what was talked about in this meeting. I don't expect more than a few lines. Usually these meetings are pretty short and there's not much interesting to say. But as Scrum says, you will discuss what did you complete or do since yesterday. What will you all be doing today? So you could consider it a very short planning meeting, just delegating out tasks or stating what you're working on, and then if there are any immediate problems. Now, an important point is that you do not start talking about these or discussing these problems at this meeting, because usually that will just result in 2 people talking and the other 2 sitting by and waiting. So one of you may say, oh, I have a problem with this, I'm not entirely sure how to do it. And if someone else says, okay, I've done that before, let's talk afterwards. All right. So you have these for each day. If you have 3, 4, 5 days of sprint, you have 3, 4, 5 daily Scrum meetings. That's the idea. Then you have a sprint review, so that's the status meeting of what was actually completed. So again, time, date, duration, who's present, and a recap, what was discussed, what was the outcome of the meeting, what was actually completed for this sprint. If you had an actual customer, this would also be where you might patch their product to the latest version with your newest updates, and you could do a demonstration for the customer. We don't really have that in this semester project usually, so we can skip that part. And then finally the retrospective meeting, where you look inwards and discuss your teamwork. Right, time, date, duration, who's present, short recap, what was discussed. So you talk about your teamwork. Often it's in the points of what should you start doing, what should you continue doing, and what should you stop doing. But I saw a group one semester, and they, for each retrospective meeting, they would find a new approach. So I think they found something on Google on how to do retrospective meeting, and they had some points each time that they should discuss, and it would take a look at the teamwork from various angles. So there are different approaches. I think this is what Scrum officially says, but there are alternatives. Right, so this is what I want you to do. Right, so that's one sprint, and you should just document this as a diary. So whenever you do a meeting, you document it. You do a daily Scrum, you document it. It shouldn't take more than a few minutes. Or if you have someone responsible for it, you can document it during the meeting. And then you have this diary stuff, and you can more or less just put it in the process report at the end. So it will both make it easier to write your report. You will have your Scrum documented, fairly precise. And if you actually follow the structure here, it will also force you to follow the Scrum guidelines, more or less. So this is what I expect to see in the process report. All right, I think that's all I have to say about this.